I ran down that hospital corridor like my life depended on it, my shoes squeaking against the polished linoleum, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. Lucas was in surgery. My son. My only son. The call had come in 40 minutes ago. Car accident, critical condition, St. Mary's Hospital. Elena had been screaming into the phone, her voice cracking with terror, and I'd left the construction site without a word to anyone, just dropped my clipboard and ran. The fluorescent lights overhead blurred into streaks as I rushed past rooms and gurneys and people in scrubs. Room 217. That's what Elena had said. Operating room 217. I had to see him. Had to know he was okay. 26 years old, and he'd survived chicken pox and a broken arm from falling out of that damn oak tree and a nasty bout of pneumonia when he was 12. But this was different. This was critical condition. I rounded the corner and saw the double doors ahead marked Surgical Wing, Authorized Personnel Only. I didn't care about authorized. I didn't care about rules. That was my son in there, and I was going to see him. I was maybe 10 feet from the doors when a hand shot out from a side hallway and grabbed my arm. Hard. "Sir." The voice was urgent, female, barely above a whisper. I spun around, ready to yell at whoever was trying to stop me, and found myself face to face with a nurse I'd never seen before. She was maybe 30, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that were wide with something that looked like fear. "Let go of me," I said, trying to pull away. "My son is in there." "Quick, sir. Hide and trust me." Her grip tightened, her nails digging into my forearm through my work shirt. "It's a trap." I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "What the hell are you talking about? My son is in surgery. I need to—" "No." She pulled me toward the side hallway, glancing over her shoulder at the surgical wing doors. "No, sir, please. I'm risking my job telling you this, but you need to hide. Now. Something isn't right." There was genuine terror in her voice and something else. Urgency mixed with a desperate need to be believed. I'd been in construction for 25 years. I knew how to read people, how to tell when someone was lying or when they genuinely needed help. This woman was telling the truth, or at least she believed she was. "What trap?" I asked, but I let her pull me into the side hallway, into a small alcove near a supply closet. "Just wait," she whispered. 10 minutes, please. Watch the doors. You'll see." She pressed herself against the wall next to me, both of us hidden in the shadows of the alcove, and I felt my whole world tilting sideways. This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Lucas was in surgery. Elena had called me, crying, saying he'd been in an accident. Why would a nurse tell me it was a trap? What kind of trap? Who would... The surgical wing doors swung open. I held my breath. Lucas walked out. Not on a gurney, not unconscious, not bleeding or broken or bandaged. He walked out on his own 2 feet, wearing his regular clothes, jeans and that gray hoodie I'd seen him in this morning when he'd stopped by the house to borrow my power drill. He looked fine, completely fine, not a scratch on him, and he wasn't alone. Riley walked beside him, her hand tucked into his arm, her blonde hair perfect as always, her expression wrong. It was smug, satisfied, like she'd just won something. My mouth went dry. The nurse beside me stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. Lucas said something to Riley that I couldn't hear, and she laughed. Actually laughed. Then they turned down the hallway, heading toward the administrative wing, and I saw what Lucas was holding. A folder. A thick manila folder with papers sticking out of the top. My papers. I'd seen that folder before, in my home office. It contained copies of my business documents, property deeds, bank account information, everything related to Mitchell Construction and the assets I'd built over 25 years of backbreaking work. I'd kept it locked in my filing cabinet. What the hell was Lucas doing with it? "I'm sorry," the nurse whispered beside me. "I saw them planning this 3 days ago. I heard them talking in the parking lot. Your daughter-in-law works here part-time in records. She's been accessing your medical files, your personal information. I didn't know if I should say anything, but when I saw you running down the hall looking so panicked, I couldn't let you walk into whatever they're doing." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. I just stared at the empty hallway where my son and his wife had disappeared, and felt something crack open inside my chest, something dark and cold and furious. "There was no accident?" I finally managed to ask. "No, sir, I'm sorry. No accident." I nodded slowly, still staring at that empty hallway. My hands had curled into fists without me realizing it. My jaw hurt from clenching my teeth. That bastard. That ungrateful, manipulative little bastard. And her. Riley. Sweet, perfect Riley, who'd wormed her way into my family 2 years ago with her soft voice and her respectful ma'am and sir and her homemade cookies and her, "I just want to be part of this wonderful family, Mr. Mitchell." "Thank you," I said to the nurse, my voice coming out rough and strange. "Thank you for telling me. What are you going to do?" Good question. What was I going to do? Follow them, confront them right here in the hospital, grab that folder and demand to know what the hell they thought they were doing? No. No, that's not how this would work. If they were playing games, if they were scheming behind my back, then I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made a move. I needed to understand the whole picture. "I'm going to find out what they're up to," I said, "and then I'm going to stop it." The nurse nodded, looking relieved. "Be careful. Your daughter-in-law, she's not what she seems. I've heard her talking to people on the phone. She's calculating, smart, dangerous in her own way." I looked at her, really looked at her. "Why are you helping me?" She smiled sadly. "My father went through something similar. His son and daughter-in-law drained his retirement account and left him with nothing. He died broke and alone. I couldn't watch it happen to someone else without at least trying to warn them." I wanted to hug her, this stranger who'd risked her job to save me from walking into whatever trap Lucas and Riley had set. Instead, I just nodded and said, "Thank you. What's your name?" "Kelly." "Thank you, Kelly." She slipped away down the hallway, back to her duties, and I stayed in that alcove for another minute, trying to process what I'd just seen. Lucas was fine. He'd never been in an accident. Elena's call, that hysterical, terrified call, had been fake. Or maybe Elena didn't even know. Maybe Riley had called, disguising her voice. Or maybe Lucas had called and told Elena some story about an accident to get me here. But why? What was the point of getting me to the hospital? To get me away from home, I realized. To get me out of the house so they could... What? Search for something? Take something? The folder, the documents, they already had those. Which meant they'd been in my house recently, going through my office, and I'd been too blind and stupid and trusting to notice. I pulled out my phone and called Elena. It rang 4 times before she answered, and I could hear the tears in her voice immediately. "James, are you there yet? Is he okay? Have you seen him?" So she didn't know. She genuinely thought Lucas was hurt. "Elena," I said carefully, "who called you about the accident?" "What? What do you mean?" "A woman from the hospital called. She said Lucas had been in a car accident and was in critical condition, and we needed to get here right away." "Why? James, what's going on?" "Where are you right now?" "I'm still at home. I was trying to find my keys. I couldn't find them anywhere, and I was so upset I could barely think straight. I was about to call a cab." "Why?" "James, you're scaring me. Lucas is fine," I said. "There was no accident. Stay home. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't let anyone in the house. Not Lucas, not Riley, not anyone. Do you understand?" Silence on the other end. Then, what?" "Just trust me. Please. I'll explain everything when I get there." I hung up before she could ask more questions and headed for the exit, walking fast but not running. No need to draw attention. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. Lucas and Riley had faked an emergency to get me out of the house. They had my business documents. They were planning something big, something that required access to my private files in my absence from home. The question was, what? I'd find out. One way or another, I'd find out exactly what my son and his wife were planning, and then I'd make them regret ever thinking they could betray me. I'd built Mitchell Construction from nothing. Started with a pickup truck and a toolbox and a willingness to work harder than anyone else. I'd given Lucas everything, a good home, a good education, a future. I'd trusted him with my business, started training him to take over someday when I retired. And this was how he repaid me. The anger burned hot and bright in my chest as I pushed through the hospital doors into the parking lot. The November air was cold and sharp, and I welcomed it. It helped clear my head. I needed to think, needed to plan. If they wanted to play games, fine, I'd play. But they'd learn quickly that James Mitchell didn't lose. Not to anyone, especially not to his own son. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below. Have you ever faced something like this? I made it home in 15 minutes, breaking at least 3 traffic laws in the process. My truck skidded into the driveway, and I was out and heading for the door before the engine had even stopped ticking. Elena met me in the entryway, her face pale and confused, her hands twisted together in front of her chest. "James, what is going on? You said Lucas is fine? But the woman on the phone said—" "The woman on the phone lied," I said, closing and locking the front door behind me. Lucas is perfectly fine. I saw him at the hospital, walking around, completely healthy. This whole thing was a setup. Elena's face went from pale to white. She grabbed the back of the nearest chair to steady herself. A setup? James, that doesn't make sense. Why would Lucas... That's what we're going to find out. I headed straight for my office, Elena following close behind. The door was closed, but not locked. I always locked it. Always. I turned the handle and pushed it open, already knowing what I'd find. My filing cabinet was open. The bottom drawer, the one where I kept all my important documents, gaped wide. Papers were scattered across my desk. Not many, just a few, like someone had been looking through them and got interrupted or didn't care about being neat. My laptop was gone. Not in its usual spot on the desk, not in the drawer where I sometimes stored it. Gone. Jesus Christ, I muttered, walking into the room and surveying the damage. Elena came up beside me, her hand over her mouth. James, did we get robbed? In a manner of speaking? I moved to the filing cabinet and started checking what was missing. The folder I'd seen Lucas carrying? Yes, that was gone. It had contained copies of my business incorporation papers, the deed to the construction company's main property, bank account statements, tax returns from the last 5 years. Everything someone would need if they wanted to understand the full financial picture of Mitchell Construction. But why? I pulled open the other drawers. Nothing else seemed to be missing. Just that one folder, just the business documents. I don't understand, Elena said. You think Lucas did this? James, he's our son. He wouldn't... He did. I closed the cabinet and turned to face her. I saw him at the hospital with Riley. He had my folder. He looked fine, Elena. Not a scratch on him. No accident. No emergency. It was all fake to get me out of the house so he could come here and take these files. Elena sank into the chair behind my desk, her face crumpling. But why? Why would he need those documents? If he wanted to see them, he could have just asked you. That was the question, wasn't it? Lucas was my son. I'd been training him in the business for the last 3 years, teaching him everything I knew. If he wanted information about the company, all he had to do was ask. We'd spent hours going over finances and contracts and property holdings. I'd been open with him about everything because I'd assumed, stupidly apparently, that he'd take over when I was ready to retire. But taking the documents without asking, faking an emergency, that spoke to something else, something secretive and planned and wrong. I don't know yet, I said, but I'm going to find out. Does your laptop work? What? Your laptop. Is it working? Mine's gone and I need to check something. Elena nodded slowly, still looking dazed. It's in the bedroom, on the dresser. I headed upstairs, my mind churning through possibilities. Lucas needed my business documents for something he couldn't ask me about directly. That meant he was planning to do something I wouldn't approve of. What? Sell the company? Borrow against it? Change the ownership structure? I grabbed Elena's laptop from the bedroom and brought it downstairs to the kitchen table. Elena followed, moving like she was in a trance, and sat across from me as I opened the computer and pulled up my bank accounts. I had 3 main accounts: personal checking, personal savings, and the business account for Mitchell Construction. I logged into the personal checking first. Everything looked normal. Balance was what it should be. Recent transactions were all mine. Gas, groceries, the electric bill, nothing suspicious. Personal savings, also normal. I hesitated before opening the business account. Something cold settled in my stomach. I clicked the link. The page loaded. I stared at the screen. James? Elena leaned forward. What is it? There's been activity, I said slowly. Recent activity. Yesterday, someone initiated a transfer request. $50,000. From the business account to... I don't recognize this account number. Elena's eyes went wide. 50,000? James, can you stop it? I clicked through to the transfer details. Status, pending, authorization required. I could cancel it, but that wasn't the point. The point was that someone had tried to move $50,000 out of my business account without my knowledge. Who has access to this account? Elena asked. Me and Lucas. I added him as a secondary account holder 6 months ago so he could help with vendor payments and payroll. The room went very quiet. Outside, a car drove past, its engine fading into the distance. The refrigerator hummed. Elena's breathing came faster, shorter. Lucas tried to steal $50,000 from you, she said. Tried. The transfer needs my authorization to complete. He would have known that. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Which means this was either a test to see if he could do it, or what? Or he's planning to get my authorization somehow. Maybe forge it. Maybe trick me into approving it. I don't know. I closed the laptop and rubbed my hands over my face. My head was pounding. This morning I'd woken up thinking it would be a normal day. Check the construction site, review the blueprints for the Henderson project, maybe grab lunch with Elena. Simple, easy. Now I was sitting here realizing my son was trying to rob me. "We need to call him," Elena said. "We need to confront him about this right now. James, this is insane. There has to be an explanation." "There is an explanation," I said. "The explanation is that Lucas and Riley are planning something big enough that they need access to my business documents and my money, and they are willing to lie and manipulate to get it." "But what? What could they possibly need that much money for?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet, but I was going to get one. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Lucas's number. My thumb hovered over the call button. Part of me wanted to call him right now, demand to know what the hell he thought he was doing. But another part, the smarter part, the part that had learned over 25 years in business that you never make a move until you understand the full situation, that part told me to wait. If I called now, angry and accusing, Lucas would just lie. He'd make up some story, he'd try to talk his way out of it. And I wouldn't get the truth. No. Better to watch. Better to wait. Better to figure out exactly what they were planning before I made my move. "Don't call him," I said to Elena. "Not yet. James, trust me. If we confront him now, we'll never know what he's really up to. Let him think his plan worked. Let him think I'm at the hospital, panicking about his fake accident. We'll figure out what he's doing, and then we'll stop him." Elena looked at me like I'd suggested we burn the house down. "You want to just let him steal from you?" "I want to catch him in the act," I said. "There's a difference. The transfer hasn't gone through. I can cancel it any time. But if we play this right, we can find out what Lucas and Riley are really planning, and then we can deal with it properly. This is our son, James. Our son. Maybe there's a reasonable explanation. Maybe he borrowed the documents for a school project, or Lucas hasn't been in school for 3 years. Well, maybe he needed them for a loan application, or then he would have asked me." Elena fell silent. I could see her struggling with it, trying to reconcile the idea of Lucas as a thief with the memory of Lucas as a baby, as a toddler, as the little boy who'd cried when his goldfish died and who'd saved up his allowance to buy her flowers on Mother's Day. I understood. I was struggling with it too, but facts were facts, and the facts said my son had broken into my office and stolen my documents and tried to transfer $50,000 without my permission. "Okay," Elena finally said. "Okay. What do we do?" "We act normal. If Lucas calls, you tell him you're still trying to find your keys, that you haven't made it to the hospital yet. I'll tell him the same thing if he calls me. We pretend we're still looking for him, still panicking. Meanwhile, I'm going to do some digging, see if I can find out what he needs the money for." "How?" "Good question. How did you investigate your own son?" It felt wrong. It felt like a violation of trust. But then, Lucas had already violated my trust by breaking into my office and stealing from me. "I'll start with Riley," I said. "See if I can find out what she's been up to. The nurse at the hospital said Riley works there part-time in records. If she's been accessing my files, maybe she's been accessing other things too. Maybe I can find something there." "You're going back to the hospital?" "Not yet. First I'm going to make some calls, see what I can learn." I spent the next hour on the phone, calling contacts, asking careful questions. I reached out to Tom Brennan, who worked in medical billing at St. Mary's, and asked him, casually, like I was just curious, if he knew a Riley Mitchell who worked in records. "Riley Mitchell? Yeah, I know her. Blonde, pretty, real friendly. She's been here about 6 months, I think. Part-time data entry." "Why?" "Just wondering. She's my daughter-in-law. She mentioned working at St. Mary's, and I realized I didn't know much about what she does there." "Oh, nice. Yeah, she seems great, although—" Tom paused. "Actually, there was some weird stuff a few weeks back. Someone flagged some unusual file access activity. Riley's login was used to pull up a bunch of patient records that she shouldn't have had any reason to look at. Nothing came of it, though. She said her password must have been compromised, and she changed it." My grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of patient records?" "I don't know the details. HR handled it. But I remember someone mentioning it was financial information, mostly. Insurance stuff, payment records, that kind of thing." "Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it." "No problem. Hey, you guys should come over for dinner sometime. Haven't seen you in months." "Yeah, definitely. I'll talk to Lena." I hung up and sat back, thinking. Riley had been accessing patient files she shouldn't have been looking at. Financial information, insurance records. Why? Unless she was looking for something specific. Something about me, maybe. my medical records, my insurance, my financial information. But what could she do with that? Steal my identity? Commit fraud? Or maybe it was simpler. Maybe she was just gathering information, building a complete picture of my finances so she and Lucas could figure out how much I was worth and how to get access to it. The thought made me sick. My phone buzzed. Text message from Lucas. "Dad, where are you? Are you at the hospital?" I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to text back something angry and accusatory. But I forced myself to stay calm. Play the game. Don't let him know what you know. I typed back, "Just got here." "Where are you? Your mother said you were in an accident?" The response came quickly. "I'm in recovery. Room 217. Not as bad as they thought. Banged up, but okay. Liar. Room 217 was the operating room, not a recovery room, and he wasn't banged up at all. I'd seen him with my own eyes, walking around perfectly healthy. I typed, "Thank God. Be there soon." I wasn't going anywhere near that hospital. Instead, I was going to keep digging, keep learning, until I knew exactly what Lucas and Riley were planning. And then I was going to burn their plan to the ground. I got to my office at 1:30, giving myself time to prepare. Mitchell Construction operated out of a small building on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just a front office, a conference room, and a back area for storing equipment and supplies. I'd bought it 8 years ago when the business had grown enough to need permanent space. Dennis arrived at 1:45, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked sharp in a suit and tie, every inch the professional attorney. He shook my hand firmly when he entered. "You ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be. Remember what we discussed. Don't agree to anything. Don't sign anything. Let me handle the legal talk. You just listen and stay calm." "What if they try to ambush us with something?" "Then we end the meeting and regroup. You're not obligated to make decisions on the spot, James. Whatever they present, we can take time to review it." I nodded, feeling slightly better. Having Dennis here made this feel more manageable, more like a business meeting and less like a family betrayal. At 2:00 exactly, Lucas and Riley arrived. Through the front window, I watched them park and get out of their car. Lucas was wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, looking professional. Riley wore a dress and heels, her hair down in soft waves. They looked like a respectable young couple, like people you'd trust. The door opened and they walked in, both smiling. "Hey, Dad." Lucas extended his hand for a shake. I looked at his hand for a long moment before accepting it. His grip was firm, confident, like he had nothing to hide. "Lucas, Riley." I gestured to the conference room. "Let's talk in there." Dennis followed us in and closed the door. We all took seats around the small table, me and Dennis on one side, Lucas and Riley on the other, like opposing teams preparing for battle. "Thanks for meeting with us," Lucas said. "I know things have been confusing lately." "Confusing," I repeated. "That's one word for it." "Dad, before we get into why we're here, I want to apologize. The thing at the hospital, I know you must have been scared when Mom called you. That wasn't fair to you." So he was admitting to the fake emergency. Interesting. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "Because I needed to talk to you, and I knew you'd blow me off if I just called. You've been avoiding me for weeks." "I haven't been avoiding you. You have. Ever since I started asking questions about the business, about succession planning, about what happens when you retire." Dennis shifted beside me. "Mister, Mitchell isn't required to discuss his retirement plans with anyone, including family members." Lucas glanced at Dennis, then back to me. "I know, but Dad, I'm your son. I've been working in the business for 3 years. I thought eventually you'd hand things over to me. That was always the plan, wasn't it?" "It was," I said, "when I was ready to retire, which isn't now." "But when will that be? 5 years? 10? 20? Dad, you're 48. You could work for another 25 years if you wanted to. Am I supposed to wait until I'm 50 to finally have a career of my own?" "You have a career. You work for Mitchell Construction." "Working for you isn't the same as having my own business. And the way things are set up now, I'll never really have ownership. I'll always just be your employee." There it was, the real grievance. Lucas didn't want to wait for his inheritance. He wanted control now. "So what are you proposing?" Dennis asked. Riley leaned forward, sliding a folder across the table. We had some attorneys look at the business structure. They suggested some changes that would benefit everyone. I opened the folder. Inside were several documents, professionally printed and bound. The top one was titled, "Proposed Business Succession Plan for Mitchell Construction." I skimmed through it, my anger building with each page. The proposal essentially restructured the company to give Lucas immediate partial ownership, 49%, while I retained 51%. But there were clauses about decision-making that would require mutual agreement on major business choices, and there was a provision about incapacitation that would trigger an immediate transfer of my shares to Lucas if I was deemed unable to manage the business. "This is insane," I said. "It's fair," Lucas countered. "You still have majority control, but I get a real stake in the company, and if something happens to you, God forbid, there's a clear succession plan in place." "If something happens to me? You mean if I die or become incompetent?" "That's either one. Dad, you've had some health scares." "I'm fine." "But what if you're not? What if something happens and there's no plan in place? The business could collapse. Everything you built could disappear." "Because normal estate planning isn't enough," Riley said, speaking for the first time. "We've seen too many families lose everything because there wasn't proper planning. This protects everyone." "This protects Lucas," I said. "This gives him control of my business while I'm still alive and working." "Partial control," Lucas corrected. "And yes, it gives me a stake. Why is that wrong? I've worked hard for this company. I deserve to have ownership." "You're 26 years old. You've worked for 3 years. You haven't earned ownership yet." Lucas's expression hardened. "I see. So no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I contribute, I'll never be good enough. I'll always just be your employee, waiting for you to die so I can finally have what should be mine." "That's not what I said. It's what you meant." Lucas stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "You know what? Forget it. Forget the whole thing. I thought we could do this reasonably as adults, but clearly you're not interested in treating me like an equal." "Sit down, Lucas." "No, I'm done. Come on, Riley." Riley gathered up the documents and stood, but she paused before leaving. "Mr. Mitchell, Lucas tried to do this nicely. He tried to work with you, but if you won't cooperate, we'll have to pursue other options." "What other options?" She smiled, and it wasn't sweet anymore. "Legal ones. If you're not mentally capable of managing the business, if you're making irrational decisions that harm the company, then someone needs to step in, for everyone's protection." There it was, the threat I'd been waiting for. "Are you threatening to have me declared incompetent?" "I'm saying that if you refuse to plan for the future, we'll have to take steps to protect the business. That's all." Lucas grabbed her arm. "Riley, let's go." They left, the door slamming behind them. I sat there, staring at the papers they'd left on the table, feeling my hands shake with rage. Dennis picked up the documents and flipped through them slowly. "This is worse than I thought." "What do you mean?" "These clauses about incapacitation? They're written broadly. Almost anything could trigger a transfer of control. A medical emergency, a hospitalization, even an extended absence from work. If they can manufacture evidence that you're not capable of managing the business, even temporarily, Lucas could take control." "Can they actually do that?" "They can try. They'd need to petition the court, provide evidence, prove that you're unable to manage your affairs. It's not easy, but it's possible. Especially if Riley's been gathering medical records or financial documents that could be twisted to make you look incompetent." I thought about the nurse at the hospital. Riley's been accessing files she shouldn't have seen, medical information, financial records. "They've been building a case," I said. "For how long?" "Based on those attorney payments you found? At least 2 months, maybe longer." "What do I do?" Dennis set the documents down. "You fight back, you document everything, you make sure there's a clear record of your competence and capability, you get your own medical evaluation if necessary, and most importantly, you prepare for them to petition the court. Because, James, I think they're going to." "How soon?" "Probably very soon. They came here today hoping you'd sign this proposal. You didn't, so now they moved to Plan B, trying to force the issue through legal means." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot. Lucas's car was gone. My son. The boy I'd raised, taught, trusted. The boy who'd looked up to me as a kid and asked me to teach him everything I knew about construction. Where had that boy gone? "I want to file a restraining order," I said, "against both of them. I want them to stay away from my business and my home." "That's aggressive. Are you sure?" "They threatened me, Dennis, in my own office. They're planning to destroy me legally if I don't give them what they want. Yes, I'm sure." "Okay, I'll draw up the papers." "But James, this is going to get ugly. Once you file that restraining order, there's no going back. Your relationship with Lucas will be over." "It's already over. He ended it when he decided to betray me." Dennis nodded slowly. "I'll have everything ready by tomorrow morning." After he left, I stayed in the office, sitting alone in the conference room, staring at the documents Lucas had left behind. 49% ownership, decision-making power, automatic transfer of control if I was deemed incapacitated. They'd thought of everything. They'd planned this down to the smallest detail. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd assumed I'd be too emotional to think clearly, too trusting to see their manipulation, too passive to fight back. They were wrong. I pulled out my phone and called Elena. It's done. They showed their cards. I'm filing a restraining order tomorrow. James, no more debate. They threatened me. They're trying to steal my business. I'm not going to let them. Silence on the line. Then, okay, what do you need me to do? Stay home, lock the doors. Don't let Lucas or Riley inside if they show up. I'll be home in an hour. Be careful. I will. I hung up and sat for another minute, letting the anger settle into something cold and hard and focused. Lucas wanted a war? Fine, he'd get one. But he'd learn quickly that James Mitchell didn't lose wars, especially not against his own son. The restraining order was filed the next morning. Dennis delivered it personally to Lucas and Riley at 10 o'clock, accompanied by a sheriff's deputy to ensure there was no dispute about them receiving it. I wasn't there, but Dennis called me afterward to confirm it was done. They're not allowed within 500 feet of you, your home or your business, he said. Any violation and they'll be arrested. How do you feel? Like I just declared war on my own son. You didn't declare war. You responded to one. Remember that. I tried to, but it didn't make me feel any better. The rest of the week passed in tense silence. No calls from Lucas, no texts, no attempts to contact me at all. I'd half expected him to show up screaming about the restraining order, but there was nothing, just silence. That worried me more than confrontation would have. On Friday, Dennis called with news. Lucas filed a petition with the court. He's asking for an emergency conservatorship over you and your assets. My stomach dropped. Already? Yeah. They're claiming you're suffering from early onset dementia and are making irrational financial decisions that are harming the business. I don't have dementia. I know, but they're building a narrative. The court will schedule a hearing, probably within the next 2 weeks. You'll need to be evaluated by a court-appointed psychiatrist to prove your competence. This is insane. This is what happens when family members fight over money. James, I need you to stay calm and focused. Don't do anything that could be used against you. Don't make large purchases. Don't make unusual business decisions. Don't give them any ammunition. What about the business? Can I still run it? Yes, for now. But if the court grants even a temporary conservatorship, Lucas could take control immediately. We need to fight this hard and fast. I spent the weekend gathering evidence of my competence. Bank statements showing consistent, rational financial management. Testimonials from business partners and employees about my capabilities. Medical records from my regular doctor confirming I was healthy and mentally sharp. It felt degrading. Having to prove I wasn't crazy, having to defend myself against accusations from my own son. But I did it. Because the alternative was losing everything, the hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. 2 weeks of waiting, of knowing Lucas was out there somewhere, plotting his next move. 2 weeks of barely sleeping, of jumping at every unexpected sound, of wondering if this was really happening. Elena moved through the house like a ghost. She'd stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped doing much of anything. She'd sit in the living room for hours, staring at old photo albums, looking at pictures of Lucas as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, trying to find the moment when he'd changed from her sweet boy into this stranger who was trying to destroy his father. I keep thinking about his 10th birthday, she said one night. Remember, he wanted that bike so badly, the red one with the racing stripes. We couldn't afford it, but you worked overtime for 2 months to save up. And when we gave it to him, he cried. He was so happy. He hugged you and said you were the best dad in the world. I remember. What happened to that boy? I don't know. But I did know. Somewhere along the line, Lucas had decided that being given things wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted everything. And he'd found someone, Riley, who encouraged that greed, who fed it, who helped him scheme and plan and betray. 2 days before the hearing, something happened that changed everything. I was at the office reviewing documents with Dennis when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Mitchell? A female voice, nervous, speaking quickly. This is Kelly from the hospital. We met last week. Kelly, yes, I remember. Thank you again for warning me. Mr. Mitchell, I need to tell you something. It's about Riley. I overheard something today that you need to know. My pulse quickened. What did you hear? Riley was in the records room. She was on the phone with someone. I think it was Lucas. She was talking about the hearing. She said they had one more piece of evidence they needed, something that would guarantee they'd win. What evidence? I don't know exactly, but Mr. Mitchell, she said something that scared me. She said, "Don't worry, we'll get it, even if we have to make it happen ourselves." What does that mean? Make what happen? I don't know. I think they're planning something. Something to make you look incompetent. An incident or an emergency or something they can point to and say, "See, he's not capable. You need to be careful." Kelly, thank you. Thank you for calling. Please be careful, Mr. Mitchell. I have a bad feeling about this. I hung up and looked at Dennis. They're planning something. Some kind of incident to make me look incompetent before the hearing. What kind of incident? I don't know, but Kelly said Riley told Lucas they'd make it happen. That doesn't sound like they're waiting for me to screw up naturally. Dennis's expression darkened. You need protection, private security, someone watching your house, following you, making sure Lucas and Riley can't get close to you. That seems extreme. Extreme? James, they're trying to steal your life savings and your business. They've already proven they're willing to lie and manipulate. If they're planning to manufacture some incident to make you look incompetent, you need to take it seriously. He was right. I knew he was right. But the idea of hiring bodyguards to protect me from my own son felt surreal. Okay, I said. Set it up. By that evening, I had 2 private security guards watching my house. One in a car on the street, one patrolling the property. It cost a fortune, but Dennis insisted it was necessary. Evidence, he said. If Lucas and Riley tried anything, we'd have witnesses and documentation. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep at all. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through everything that was about to happen. The judge would review the evidence. The court-appointed psychiatrist would evaluate me. Lucas would present his case, his false narrative about my declining mental health, and then the judge would decide. If Lucas won, I'd lose everything. My business, my assets, my independence, everything I'd built over 25 years would be handed to my son, who'd proven he didn't deserve it. If I won, I'd keep what was mine, but I'd lose my son forever. The restraining order would stay in place. Lucas would hate me. We'd never speak again. Either way, I lost something. Around 3 a.m, I heard a noise outside, a car door closing. I sat up immediately, my heart pounding. The security guard in the street should have been watching. Why hadn't he alerted me? I grabbed my phone and called the guard's number. No answer. I called the second guard. No answer. Something was wrong. I got out of bed and moved to the window, staying to the side where I couldn't be seen from outside. The street was dark. The security car was empty. Both guards were gone. Where the hell were they? I heard another sound. This one from downstairs. The back door opening. Someone was in my house. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept in the closet and moved quietly to the bedroom door. Elena was asleep, or pretending to be. I didn't wake her, didn't want to scare her if this was nothing, but it wasn't nothing. I knew it wasn't nothing. I crept down the stairs, gripping the bat, my hands sweating. The living room was dark, the kitchen light was off, but I could hear movement. Someone was in my office. I moved toward it, staying close to the wall, trying to keep my breathing quiet. The office door was open. I could see a flashlight beam moving inside, searching. I reached the doorway and flipped on the light. Lucas spun around, caught in the act. He was wearing dark clothes and gloves, holding a stack of papers from my filing cabinet. Behind him, Riley stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" I said. Lucas's expression shifted from shock to anger. "This is my inheritance. I have a right to these documents. You have a restraining order. You're not supposed to be anywhere near me or my property. I'm calling the police." I pulled out my phone, but Riley moved fast. She lunged forward and grabbed the phone from my hand, throwing it across the room where it shattered against the wall. "No police," she said. Lucas set the papers down. "Dad, listen. We didn't want it to come to this, but you left us no choice. You won't cooperate, you won't share, you won't plan for the future. Someone has to take control. By breaking into my house? By stealing my documents? Lucas, you're committing a crime. I'm protecting my inheritance. And tomorrow, at that hearing, the judge is going to see that you're not capable of managing your affairs. You're paranoid, irrational, you've hired security guards to watch your own house. Because you're breaking in. The judge won't see it that way. They'll see a man who's losing his grip on reality, and then I'll finally get what should have been mine years ago." I stared at my son, this stranger wearing my son's face, and felt something inside me break. "Get out of my house." "Or what? You'll hit me with that bat? That'll really help your case. Go ahead, Dad, assault me. Give me more evidence of your mental instability. He was right. If I touched him, if I did anything violent, it would destroy my case. I'd look exactly like what he was claiming. Unstable, dangerous, incompetent. Just leave, I said. Take the papers. Take whatever you want. Just get out. Riley smiled. See? He's giving up. He knows he can't win. They walked past me, carrying my documents, and headed for the back door. Lucas paused at the doorway and looked back. Tomorrow, Dad. Tomorrow this all ends. They left. I stood in my office, surrounded by the mess they'd made, holding a baseball bat I couldn't use, and felt the full weight of defeat settling over me. They'd won. They'd gotten into my house, stolen more evidence, and made me look weak and helpless. Tomorrow at the hearing, they'd present everything. The security guards, the restraining order, my inability to stop them from breaking in, as proof that I was paranoid and incompetent, and I had no way to prove otherwise, unless an idea began to form. A dark idea, a risky idea, but it might be my only chance. I picked up the pieces of my shattered phone and found the SIM card, slotted it into an old backup phone I kept in a drawer, booted it up. Then I called Dennis. James, it's 4 a.m. What? They broke into my house. Lucas and Riley. They stole more documents. The security guards are missing. I think they were paid off or threatened. Jesus, did you call the police? No. Dennis, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be the only way to win tomorrow. What idea? I told him. The plan that had formed in my mind. The trap I could set. The way to turn Lucas's own scheme against him. When I finished, Dennis was silent for a long moment. That's dangerous, he finally said. If it goes wrong, you could end up in serious trouble. If I do nothing, I lose everything tomorrow. This is my only shot. All right, I'll help. But James, be careful. This could backfire badly. I know, but I'm out of options. I hung up and looked at the clock. 5 hours until the hearing. 5 hours to set everything up. 5 hours to save my life. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Just a simple room with wooden benches, a judge's bench at the front, and fluorescent lighting that made everything look washed out and tired. I sat at one table with Dennis. Across the aisle, Lucas and Riley sat with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s who'd introduced herself as Margaret Vance. The judge was a stern man in his 60s named Randall Cooper. He'd reviewed the preliminary documents and now sat studying them with a frown, occasionally glancing up at us over his reading glasses. This is a petition for emergency conservatorship, Judge Cooper said. Mr. Lucas Mitchell is requesting immediate control over his father's assets and business operations due to alleged mental incompetence. This is a serious matter. Mr. Vance, you may begin. Margaret Vance stood, smoothing her suit jacket. Your Honor, we're here today because James Mitchell, despite his past success in business, is no longer capable of managing his affairs. Over the past year, he's exhibited increasingly erratic behavior. He's made poor financial decisions. He's become paranoid and hostile toward his own family, and his medical records show early signs of cognitive decline. She made it sound damning, made it sound like I was losing my mind. Additionally, Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell has recently filed a restraining order against his own son without cause. He's hired private security to guard his home. He's become isolated and suspicious. These are all classic signs of paranoid dementia. Judge Cooper looked at me. Mr. Mitchell, you've heard these allegations. What's your response? Dennis stood. Your Honor, my client is perfectly competent. The allegations made by Mr. Lucas Mitchell are based on misrepresented evidence and outright fabrication. James Mitchell runs a successful construction business. His medical records show he's in good health, and the restraining order was filed with good cause, because Lucas Mitchell and his wife have been stealing from Mr. Mitchell, attempting fraudulent financial transfers, and threatening him. That's absurd, Margaret Vance said. Your Honor, these accusations are baseless and prove exactly what we're saying. Mr. Mitchell has become paranoid and delusional. I have evidence, Dennis said. He pulled out a folder. Bank records showing Lucas Mitchell attempted to transfer $50,000 from his father's business account without authorization. Documentation of Lucas Mitchell removing confidential documents from his father's office. And a police report filed last night about a break-in at Mr. Mitchell's home. Judge Cooper raised his eyebrows. A break-in? Yes, Your Honor. Lucas and Riley Mitchell broke into James Mitchell's home at approximately 3 a.m. last night. They bypassed private security and stole additional business documents. The police have the report. We believe this was part of their ongoing scheme to gain access to Mr. Mitchell's assets. Margaret Vance's expression tightened. Your Honor, but we have no knowledge of any break-in, and even if one occurred, it doesn't change the fact that James Mitchell is exhibiting signs of mental decline. It demonstrates that Mr. Mitchell's concerns about his son are legitimate, Dennis countered. He's not paranoid. He's being actively targeted by his son and daughter-in-law who want control of his money. Judge Cooper held up a hand. All right. Both sides have made their cases. I'm going to order a psychiatric evaluation of Mr. Mitchell to be conducted today. Dr. Sarah Kensington will perform the evaluation. Based on her findings, I'll make my ruling. Court is adjourned until 3 p.m. The gavel came down. The arrest happened fast. By morning, Lucas and Riley were in custody. I saw it on the news. Footage of them being let out of their apartment in handcuffs. Lucas's face twisted with rage, Riley crying. The reporter standing outside the police station detailed the charges: breaking and entering, theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted identity theft. The list went on. I watched from my living room, coffee cup in hand, feeling nothing. Elena stood beside me, her hand over her mouth, tears running down her face. She'd been crying on and off since yesterday. I'd stopped crying years ago, or maybe I'd never really started. Men from my generation didn't cry. We just got hard and cold and did what needed to be done. Turn it off, Elena said. I reached for the remote and clicked the TV off. The silence that followed was worse than the news broadcast. What have we done? Elena whispered. We survived. At what cost? I didn't answer. Didn't have an answer. The cost was our son, our family, our peace of mind. But the alternative would have been worse. The alternative would have been losing everything and watching Lucas and Riley get away with it. My phone rang. Dennis. James, have you seen the news? Yeah. The DA's office called me. They want to meet with you this afternoon. They're building their case and need your full cooperation. I'll be there. There's something else. Lucas's attorney, Margaret Vance, reached out. She says Lucas wants to make a deal. He's willing to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for avoiding trial. What reduced charges? Misdemeanor theft instead of felony fraud. Probation instead of prison time. He'd have to pay restitution and stay away from you permanently, but he'd avoid jail. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to see Lucas face the full consequences of his actions. Wanted him to go to trial, to have every detail of his betrayal exposed in court, to spend years in prison thinking about what he'd done. But another part, a smaller, quieter part that still remembered him as a child, wanted this to be over. Wanted to accept the deal, get the restitution, and move on with my life without dragging this through months of legal proceedings. What do you think I should do? I asked Dennis. That's not my decision to make, but I will say this. If you accept the deal, it ends quickly. You get your money back, Lucas stays away from you, and you can start rebuilding your life. If you push for trial, it'll take months, maybe a year. It'll be in the news constantly. Everyone will know every detail of what happened. Is that what you want? No. It wasn't. I didn't want my family's ugliness spread across newspapers and TV screens for months. Didn't want to relive this betrayal over and over in courtroom testimony. Tell them I'll accept the deal, I said. On one condition. What condition? Riley doesn't get a deal. She goes to trial. She faces the full charges. Dennis paused. Why Riley and not Lucas? Because Lucas is my son. I can't send him to prison, even though he deserves it. But Riley? She's the one who planned this. She's the one who manipulated him, who accessed those medical files, who made this all possible. She doesn't get mercy. All right. I'll communicate that to the DA. But James, you should know. Lucas probably won't take a deal if Riley doesn't get one too. He'll want to protect her. Then that's his choice. But my offer stands. Lucas can plead out. Riley can't. I hung up and sat back down on the couch. Elena was staring at me. You're letting him off easy, she said. I'm giving him a chance. More than he gave me. He tried to destroy you. I know. But I'm not sending my son to prison. I can't do it, Elena. I can't live with that. She nodded slowly. What about Riley? Riley can rot. James, she's not my family. She came into our lives and poisoned everything. She took my son and turned him against me. I'm not showing her the same mercy I'm showing Lucas. Elena didn't argue. Maybe she agreed with me. Maybe she was just too tired to fight. Either way, she turned away and walked to the kitchen, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The meeting with the DA went smoothly. I presented everything I had, the videos, the bank records, the documentation of Lucas's payments to the estate attorneys. The DA, a serious woman in her 50s named Patricia Reeves, took notes and asked questions. "This is a strong case," she said. "With this evidence, we can get convictions on multiple charges. But I understand you want to offer a plea deal to your son?" "Yes. Misdemeanor theft, probation, restitution. He stays away from me permanently." "And Riley Mitchell?" "No deal for her. Full charges. I want her to face trial." Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Mitchell, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but splitting the defendants like this could complicate the case. Lucas and Riley were partners in this scheme. Their attorney will argue that Lucas was manipulated by Riley, that he's less culpable. If we offer him a deal and not her, it looks like we're being inconsistent." "I don't care how it looks. Those are my terms." "All right, I'll present the offer, but don't be surprised if they both reject it." She was right. 2 days later, Dennis called with the news. Lucas rejected the deal. He says if Riley doesn't get the same offer, he's not taking it. They're going to trial together. Fine. "James, are you sure about this? Trial means months of legal proceedings. It means testifying. It means putting your life under a microscope." "I'm sure." But I wasn't sure. Not really. I was angry and hurt and operating on emotion more than logic. Part of me knew I should accept whatever deal would end this fastest. But the larger part, the part that had been betrayed and threatened and stolen from, wanted to fight. Wanted to make them pay for every lie, every manipulation, every moment of fear and anger they'd caused. So we prepared for trial. The next month was hell. Depositions, evidence review, strategy sessions with Dennis and the prosecution team. Every day brought new reminders of what Lucas and Riley had done, new documents that showed the extent of their planning, new revelations about how long they'd been scheming. They'd started planning this at least 6 months ago, maybe longer. Everything had been calculated, meeting with the estate attorneys, accessing my medical files, setting up their fake emergency. They'd thought of every angle, covered every base, except they hadn't counted on me fighting back. The trial date was set for late January. Judge Cooper would preside, the same judge who'd denied their conservatorship petition. The prosecution felt good about their chances. Dennis felt confident. Everyone told me we'd win. But winning didn't feel like enough anymore. Winning just meant Lucas would go to prison instead of being on probation. Winning meant our family would be publicly destroyed in court. Winning meant I'd have to sit in that courtroom and watch my son be convicted of crimes against me. What kind of victory was that? 1 week before the trial, something unexpected happened. Elena got a phone call from Lucas. He wasn't supposed to contact us. The restraining order was still in effect. But he called Elena's cell, and she answered before she realized who it was. I only heard her side of the conversation. "Lucas, you can't call me. You're violating the restraining order." A pause. "I know you're sorry, but that doesn't fix what you did." Another pause, longer. No, I can't convince your father to drop the charges. Lucas, you broke into our house. You tried to steal from us. What did you think would happen?" Her voice cracked. "I love you too. I'll always love you. But I can't help you. I'm sorry." She hung up and started crying. Real, broken sobs that shook her whole body. I went to her and held her while she cried, and I felt my own resolve starting to crack. This was destroying her, destroying both of us. The anger I'd been carrying, the need for revenge, for justice, it was eating me alive. Maybe there was another way. "Call Dennis," I said. Elena looked up at me, her face wet with tears. "What?" "Call Dennis. Tell him I want to make a new offer." "James, what are you doing?" Something I should have done a month ago, ending this. Dennis arrived within an hour. We sat in the living room, me, Elena, Dennis, and I laid out my new proposal. Both of them get plea deals, misdemeanor theft, probation, restitution of every dollar they tried to take or actually took, and they both leave. They move out of state, they start over somewhere else, and they never contact me again. Dennis frowned. "James, this is a complete reversal. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I'm tired, Dennis. I'm tired of fighting my own son. I'm tired of watching my wife cry. I'm tired of waking up angry every morning. I just want this to end." "What about justice? What about making them pay?" "They will pay. They'll lose their home, their reputations, their connection to this town. They'll have to start completely over with criminal records. That's punishment enough." Elena grabbed my hand, squeezing tight. "Thank you," she whispered. Dennis made some notes. "I'll contact the DA and Lucas's attorney. If everyone agrees, we could have this wrapped up in a week." "Do it." The next few days were tense. The DA wasn't happy about reducing the charges, but she eventually agreed when I insisted. Margaret Vance, Lucas's attorney, jumped at the offer immediately. Lucas and Riley both agreed to the terms: guilty pleas, restitution, probation, permanent relocation. The hearing to finalize the plea deal was brief. Lucas and Riley stood before Judge Cooper, both looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen them. They pled guilty. The judge accepted their pleas and handed down the sentence: 5 years probation, full restitution, and a requirement to relocate at least 500 miles away within 60 days. When it was over, they turned to leave the courtroom. Lucas looked at me as he passed. Our eyes met for just a second. I couldn't read his expression: regret, anger, relief, maybe all three. Then he was gone. Elena and I walked out of the courthouse into cold January air. The whole ordeal had taken 3 months from start to finish, 3 months that felt like 3 years. "Is it really over?" Elena asked. "Yeah, it's over." "What happens now?" "Now we try to move on." But moving on was harder than I'd expected. The next few weeks were strange, empty. I went back to work at Mitchell Construction, but everything felt different. The employees knew what had happened. It had been all over the news. They treated me carefully, like I was fragile, like I might break if they said the wrong thing. I got the restitution money. Every penny Lucas and Riley had taken or tried to take. It sat in my bank account, cold and meaningless. Money I'd fought so hard to protect, but now I couldn't bring myself to care about it. One night, about a month after the hearing, Elena found me in my office looking at those old photos I'd put in the drawer. Lucas as a baby. Lucas at his high school graduation. "I miss him," she said. "I know." "Do you think he'll ever contact us, even though he's not supposed to?" "I don't know. Part of me hopes he does. Part of me hopes he doesn't. Which part is winning?" I thought about it. About the betrayal, the anger, the hurt. About the boy he'd been and the man he'd become. About whether people could change, whether families could heal, whether forgiveness was possible after everything that had happened. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I really don't know." Elena sat beside me, and we looked at the photos together. Our son, our family, our broken, damaged, irreparable family. "Maybe someday," Elena said. "Maybe when enough time has passed." Maybe, but I doubted it. Some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. Some relationships ended not with dramatic finality, but with quiet, aching absence. This was one of those. I put the photos back in the drawer and closed it. Out of sight. Maybe not out of mind, but at least not staring me in the face every day. "Come on," I said to Elena. "Let's go to bed." We left the office and turned off the lights. In the darkness, I could almost pretend things were normal. Could almost forget that my son had tried to destroy me. Could almost believe that tomorrow would be better than today. Almost, but not quite.